food or leather or things to make a Mardi Gras outfit, and science, and take those two things creatively and turn something into something that didn't exist before.
I answer this a lot because of the name Hacker Gals. So a hacker as in someone who modifies an object or idea to fit a personal need, and then maker would be creating.
I define makerspace as for me, it's a place of meditation. So it's a place where children can define themselves. They can make themselves more so than anything.
Thank you. So Jen, you kind of touched on this in your presentation, because the question kind of comes up, what kind of future might the maker market bring? And Chris Anderson, author of The Makers, the new industrial revolution, envisions it could mean that Western countries like the United States regain their lost manufacturing might, but rather than with a few big industrial gains, giants, they span kind of thousands of small ones. Do you agree with this?
I do. I think that the term maker, to me, can apply to something very small or very large. And I think that in the US, I think we're realizing that big isn't always better. And I think that size is a personal choice, and making allows for that choice to be whatever size works for you. And I think that it can work for whatever fits the lifestyle that you want to lead. And I think that maker's profile can be whatever works for you. And I think that's what they're referring to.
Okay.
Okay. What I would respond in regards to that is, I think it brings a richer social communicator style of any individual. Being a maker, I think you're a special delivery type person. So I think, it matters a lot.
It's basically that this makers movement perhaps could not replace, but perhaps add to some of the decline of industrial revolution that occurred in the United States. But instead of having big manufacturers, few, that we would have thousands of small ones. And do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think there's making. We had a lot of different examples today of what making is, and even in industries, within corporations, it's just kind of thinking outside of the box. So I think it's just thinking of other ways to do things and creating.
I would say yes. I would definitely say yes that the smaller maker spaces collectively would definitely move us towards more of that. I know in my neighborhood, it seems like the Industrial Revolution is always consistent. We have people, you got mom and them and auntie and them who cook dinners. You got the little guys down the street who cut the grass. You got guys who come into you. So it's like, in my neighborhood, the children are always looking for something to do or something to make a way to be productive. You have to be resourceful when there's a lack of resources. And so I think, I definitely think it will move us in that direction.
And I want to elaborate on your point. So, when you talk about few industrial, obviously Detroit, we seem to be very heavy on the automotive industry, and we saw kind of what happened when we put all our eggs in one basket. How would you characterize kind of what you're seeing now happening as we bounce back out of that?
I have several friends who work for the Big Three and took the buyout. One in particular is one of my business partners. He started his own t-shirt brand with the buyout money. He's doing fairly well. It hasn't replaced totally his income, but I just think, especially we as people, we have to be resilient. We have to be resourceful. We have to use what we have to get what we need, or use what we have to get what we want. And so I think, there's always blessings in disguise, and I really believe that the problems that we have, even with the home, with the housing industry and the automotive industry, it can really help people to become more self-efficient self-sufficient, self-reliable, self-determined, which is always great for our community.
Does anybody else want to weigh in on that? Jen, since I heard that.
Well, I do think there's power in, I think there's power in confidence and power in self-security and the disguised lessons and in empowerment. And one of the things that I have been so blessed by in coming to Detroit is the sense of empowerment I sense in the city. My dad, who was raised in the 40s and 50s, this is very interesting, he came to Detroit and he said, wow, you know, this reminds me of growing up in the 40s and 50s when everyone could afford to buy a home and open a business. Which is very interesting, I thought. He said, I feel like there's so many small businesses opening up and people buying homes and fixing them up and families moving in. I thought that was a very interesting perspective. Yeah.
And too, you know, it brings a true value of social skills. You know, it brings that more connection and giving back to communities and involving, like the young man said, the kids and the youths in the neighborhoods. And relationships comes out to me because just like I have a new friend here, I want to go to training.
Great. So all of you obviously represent very diverse organizations and maker spaces. And so can you share your biggest obstacle when starting your organization or opening up your space, and what did you do to overcome it?
So, Fame Shop is the acronym for Fashion, Art, Music, Entertainment should help our people. And it's grown on me that fashion, art, music, entertainment shouldn't hurt our people. And when I originally got my place, I got it. I didn't have this idea of a makerspace for public or teaching. I got the place to produce my own stuff. And I got the place to, you know, to have the equipment so I can make my own things. When I got the place, I spent all my money getting it. And so it was a cash flow crunch. I didn't have any cash to really make my own stuff at this point. But I had the space and I had all the equipment. And it was a previous business, so, you know, previous customers will call and ask, could I produce this or make this? And that's what I kind of shift my direction and start making stuff for others. The neighborhood in which my shop is the Pride. And the community can't really afford the services that I provide. So what happened?
Detroit, yeah, ours too.
And so what was the creative challenge that I had to overcome was, okay, the community can't really afford the services that I provide, and the people who want this service aren't coming into the community for it.
Right.
So how do I engage the community, and how do I engage people to come? And so what I came up with was a partner of mine, named Shaka Singor. He was working with me, very good friend of mine. And what we came up with was kind of like a back-to-school rally. And I ended up calling it Joy Day. My place is on Joy Road. So I ended up calling it Joy Day. And what it became was a party for the kids before back to school. Where we gave away free food to families. We fed them hot food on site. We had playscapes and bounce houses and face painting and guest speakers and so on and so forth. And I went from hearing crickets around my shop to 400 or 500 people engaged and looking forward to this event every year. And so I think you have to, especially with children, you have to kind of meet them on their level and speak their language. And once I stopped saying, come buy this, and say, come have this, things change pretty fast.
Well, I'm not in Detroit, I'm in Kalamazoo. And if you meet the Michigan map, west side of the state, it's also more, it's Kalamazoo. I love Kalamazoo, and I know other people are going to see this from there, and I do love being in Kalamazoo. I'm originally from the Detroit area, and there's a definite difference in kind of what I was saying before, just in explaining the maker movement, explaining why women need their own place. I mean, and just the education and who get involved. We don't have, there's been several attempts and there's one currently to have a makerspace in Kalamazoo, and that might change some of that, but right now, people say, Hacker Gals, what's that? Even if you explain it, they're like, so we're still kind of, I guess what's overcoming that is we haven't given up. You know, we're persistent, keep talking to people, invite to the events that we do have, and if they don't understand, then they do after, and if they like it, then they tell their friends, and it just keeps growing. So, haven't given up, and I think that's what's going to end up winning in the end, and making sure that we are including the city that we're in, like Kalamazoo, and the area that we're in, like West Michigan, and keeping them involved. And had a lot of connections with Grand Rapids because of the GR Makers, and so that's a good 50-60 mile stretch there. And we're also going to be in the Southwest Michigan Mini Maker Fair, which is in St. Joseph. So you're going even further south than from where I am, besides west. So I think it's just connections and building that community and adding that education, and some of the other things are probably going to come up as far as the cost and things like that too. But because we definitely have a lot of poverty and a lot of kids, and so all of that is going to be a factor eventually.
So you're a pioneer in Kalamazoo. Yeah, definitely. Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, well, one of my obstacles was a very expensive, high product that I do, which is beautification. And as I create and go along, there's also added cost to fabric materials. The type of service I provide is just a good time service. The community engaged, yes, but the funding part of it is very much of a struggle.
Well, it looks like you got a night grant, and now you're continuing to look for alternative resources.
Yes, but trust me, as an artist, you spend a lot of money.
For us, it's without a doubt keeping up with demand and training. If I could find a bunch of Mr. Taylors to train new, are you teaching people what you do?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Good, good, because that is the hardest thing. We can't find enough masters to move to Detroit to teach the people that want to learn. We have the people that want to learn, but to find the masters to come and teach, that is a huge, huge challenge. And the demand for our product is there, but to teach fast enough to be able to make the product of quality that we must make it at is absolutely the biggest challenge. So we need more Mr. Taylors around to teach.
So Stacy, you did talk about this during your last answer, and Jen, you definitely talked about this during your presentation. So many have said that there is a maker movement afloat. However, quote, makers are just really producing iPhone covers and jewelry. Do you think the movement is taken seriously? And if not, what do you think can be done to change the perception, or does it not need to be changed at all?
Well, I think the perception for the maker movement is that you have to have a physical product. And if you're not making some type of physical product, then you're not really a maker. So that's what, and I disagree with that, because even before I ever called Hacker Gals what it is, it's like we're changing lives. I mean, we're changing skills. We're taking time for ourselves. So it's like, we're improving, we're doing all these things that you can't physically make, but we're making time for ourselves. Who does that? But we don't do it enough. But that's still making. And but I've given presentations where they'll say, well, why are you talking about social? Why are you talking about community? it's about the things. And like, no. How can you have the teaching that everyone here is talking about? How can you have that if you don't have a community? It's like you have to care about each other. If you don't care about each other and it's just about the things, then we'll go back to consumers.
What do we do as a maker community to make more of an impact so the world will take it more seriously? So I started selling t-shirts when I was 12. By the time I was 21, I had sold my own brands in over 600 stores nationally. And I think what we need to do is commercialize some of these products that we're making. Take them to retail. Instead of just making something cute for ourselves to take home and say, look, mom or dad, what I made, won't mass produce them. Even, I call it custom mass producing because, at my place, my capacity isn't huge, but we can make 100 of something, 200 of something. And I think when the spaces start to commercialize a little bit of the products that they're making, I think people will take it a lot more serious.
You just made a critical point. So you all are familiar with Etsy? Yeah. So one of Etsy's major initiatives right now is to bridge artisanal making with mid-scale production. Because what's happening now is many makers are going out of business because they are not sustainable. Because they haven't been able to find a way to do small to mid-scale runs. Because larger manufacturers can't afford to make for them, and they're not set up to manufacture. And so we're actually involved, I'm involved specifically in setting up ways to meet small to mid-scale manufacturing needs, and I could not agree with you more, and it shouldn't be a bad word. And oftentimes we tend to be purists. Like, I believe, I call myself an American-made evangelist. However, I am not a purist. American-made doesn't mean that it has to be all the way down to the thread and the label and the rivet. It means that you do your best to purvey what you can in America and make it here. That's what it means. And so sometimes we're purist, and purist is not necessarily practical. So I think what you're talking about is pragmatic and practical, and we have to find the solutions for that. So I think you make a very, very valid point. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, my take, I would wish that we could get serious investors to support what we do as makers, and then we could grow and spread what we achieve to the markets. So I think that is one of the things that makers really need, the support of investments.
That's a great point. So maker activity has been spreading, often off the radar of local government. However, the actions and policies of cities can serve to encourage or discourage a thriving maker community. Embracing the maker movement may be the difference, make the difference in the world where cities are competing to create environments that attract talent. So what, if any, has been your experience here in Detroit or Kalamazoo? And what would you suggest ways local government could encourage to increase makers in Detroit for Kalamazoo?
Well, I don't know if you knew this, but last year in June, there was actually a White House Maker Fair. It was they called it the mayor of Kalamazoo, Bobby Hopewell. He was one of 3 mayors who went from the state of Michigan. And the idea of going to that was to bring back, besides the information, was to come back to the city and actually use that. And so he has been involved. Like, there was a mayor's Maker Council, which is where the effort for the maker space spun from, the current effort. And So in Kalamazoo, we have that involvement. I'm not sure how to answer.
Are there any things that you would suggest that local government could do to help or increase the makers movement in Kalamazoo?
Well, the support is there. I guess helping with, like there's buildings that are probably not being used that maybe could be for something like that. Kalamazoo we have the highs and lows. So in the lower areas where it really need the connections, like what he was talking about, I think we really need something at that level, and maybe helping to connect to find people who will do some of that, because it's not necessarily like the current makerspace effort is not geared, it's more geared towards the manufacturing or the engineering from what I've seen. It's not necessarily geared towards children or that skill. Well, I think we need that value, that skill building, but the value added. So,
thank you.
So typically, government is the last place that I look for any assistance. I mean, however, in Detroit, we have a very unique situation, and I would take Pony Ride's model with approaching city government for tax breaks, for breaks on property, so that we could actually have spaces in the city with, low income or low cost spaces for making things. I really think that when you're self-determined, you make a way out of no way. You are your own government, sort of say. So I would, although I would like to say more resources, more this, I think if we imparted a more self-determined spirit especially within the neighborhood that I'm in, the government may reach out to us more so than us reaching out to them.
That's good. I want to clarify, we don't get any tax breaks at Pony Ride. And I think that it was interesting because recently a student from Lawrence Tech University came to do a project, and he said, yeah, you guys get these subsidies. And I kept thinking, where subsidies? We don't get any subsidies. He said, no, I saw Phil Cooley say it on a film. And I was like, I said, oh, we subsidize rent, but that is clearly out of his resources. So I had to clarify with him, and I think there's somewhat of a misconception that we're getting tax breaks or something. Trust me, we are not. We fight with the building department, which I used to run all the time as well. Mr. Taylor?
Yeah.